Hello, I'm Richard Ashworth. I'm here to talk to you today about Hexagram 17, Sway Following, which consists of Lake over Thunder. And the purpose of this is to give you my 5 bobs worth and what it might mean if you have thrown this hexagram and what it might mean if you have particular changing lines. Also to pull out of it whatever timeless wisdom there is within it. And finally to see how maybe it relates to this moment in time. Now this hexagram, you need to have one in front of you. If you haven't got one in front of you, I suggest you pause this and get one in front of you. The books of changes are not hard to find, and you're not going to make any sense unless you can see the thing. It is Lake, third daughter, Dway over Chun, thunder, the first son. So we have something like sex, drugs and rock and roll over power. And this, being this way up, is very distinctive. That the yin is on top of the yang, because yin power is a very different kind of power than yang power. And in this case, the first son, who is the most dynamic, Chun, the one who gets stuff done, any hexagram with Chun in it is about stuff happening, has chosen to put themselves in the hands of the third daughter. It's balanced. There are 3 yin lines and 3 yang lines. Whether the host is the first or the ruler is, or the 5th line is a matter of some contention. I suggest that is the 5th, but there are different views on that. And the nuclear is slow progress, which is hexagram 53. And the ideograph is of a leader and his followers. So it's very clear that it's about leadership, and yet sway following. It appears to concern uncritical obedience. It's the gua of the unquestioning. The central message is to take responsibility for our choices, I think, even when they don't seem to be our own. It works for our decision to be truly ours and owned as such. As Richard Bach wrote, state your limitations and they are truly yours. The upper trigram Dway, that is the lake, is of course yin, and it's in charge in a very different way than the other way up. And this is a principle worth examining. So, for instance, hexagram 54, which is the other way up, marrying maiden, Goi Mei, is about the power imbalance between the upper trigram, in this case, Chun, and the lower, in this case, lake, so it's thunder over lake, who embody respectively the privileged status of the eldest son, this is raw power, the eldest son, and that of the youngest daughter, whose weapons are not bludgeons. If the older man chooses to marry the youngest daughter, which is what the situation is in marrying maiden, before her eldest sister has been attached, he can get away with it and she has little say in the matter. So he may have violated the order of things, but the tone of the text is that this affront to the order of things is pretty much her fault and she's now at best damaged goods. The obverse, the one we're dealing with today, sway following, focuses on the danger of the same daughter making mistakes through various categories of willfulness, including trusting the wrong leaders. So if you've thrown this, it's about who you should be trusting, who you should be following, and understanding the responsibility of following. That following is not just giving a blank check to someone else. Typically, leaders are yang, as is Chun, the lower trigram. There's a certain double standard here, but King Wen, who gave the gua its name and its position in the Book of Changes, knows that. And the editorial voice goes beyond gender, if not polarity. Lake, the trigram of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, is sitting over thunder, the trigram of action and decision. This hexagram counsels against going with what appears to be the flow, but is in turn that actually may turn out to be the line of least resistance. They are not necessarily the same thing. They're not necessarily not the same thing either. It is the nature of the Tao, as far as we can tell, that it is about staying awake. There are, if you like, no rules. An easygoing nature may mask failure to take responsibility for choice. And this is the hexagram of the silent who must speak if they are to influence. It's counselling a certain type of informed courage, I think, very much. Authorities differ as to which is the ruling line. Is it the strong and correct line at the base, or is it the 5th, which is equally strong and well placed, but also occupies the middle path? My teacher, Peter Firebrace, insisted it was the fifth, but what is being obscured by intellectual debate is that this is a hexagram posing a major question, and it's not a simple binary choice. Do we cleave to the loud, strong, but wrong voice of the first line, someone who has easy, seductive answers to the questions, or do we reach for the fifth? Do we just float along, wavering between the dreamy child of the second line and the punitive but unconscious adult of the third? So much punitive adult behavior is actually an adult aping of a child's understanding of a misguided adult. In a moral or emotional quandary, do we wallow, do we fight, or do we aspire? To transform our lives, do we endlessly analyze where we went wrong while we visualize and strain to manifest, or do we accept and know and complete the experience and aim for the highest? Put simply, do we feel what we feel and remember what we want, or do we disappear into endless introspection? The first two may lead nowhere, or that last one may lead nowhere, but to know and complete the experience and aim for the highest may bring real change. And King Wen, who named each hexagram 3,000 years ago and composed the title text, New Human Nature, here Thunder, the most powerful, in a literal sense, has chosen to become subordinate to Lake. Service is the essence of leadership, but however positioned, the oldest son has the greater clout. And whether we consider this or other hexagrams consisting of yin over yang, number 5, for instance, another one, key hexagram of the wood snake here is a good example. The water, in both cases, has to wait upon heaven as profoundly as when it's the other way up in hexagram 6. So if you followed that. Let us look at the text for the hexagram. Yuan Heng Li Chun. This group of words, the beginning, a sacrificial offering, profit, the divination, appears a dozen or so times in the Book of Changes, and those various words in different combinations appear even more than that. They are an invocation, a prayer, if you like, a beginning. And it's suggesting that following can mean accompanying, keeping up with, being subsequent upon, understanding the gist of, or obedience. All of those things are meant by following. What perhaps is being suggested, that we avoid roles that distort, and that we are flexible but responsible. We know when to follow and when to lead, but above all, in order to lead, we know we need to be worthy of leadership. So the individual lines will tell us more about that. So the first one is a very suspect line. It is a firm line in the right place, right at the beginning, so it doesn't really want to change. It's inflexible, if you like, and the advice generally given, generally reckoned to be derived from this line, is to be open to the ideas of others. If we change this line, which we would if we threw this changing line, we get hexagram 45, which is gathering, seeking a following from a lowly position, leading from below, which is probably not the best way to use this advice. The first and sixth lines are two instances of the same thing, and one is limited in scope, limited in power, limited in responsibility, limited in value, and the other one possibly isn't. So having faith and being prepared to take risks may be the advice of the first line. The second and third line are almost like a rhyme. Second line says, following the small child, we lose the grown man. The third line says, following the grown man, we lose the small child. It says a bit more as well. What are we talking about here? Well, it's suggesting balance is required. So if we decide to be extremely open, we need to maintain common sense at the same time. And there's a caution here to see that following the inferior first line, the kind of blowhard of the first line, is a mistake, when the powerful and mature fourth and fifth are both yang lines that will join up with this second yin line perfectly well. So becoming as a small child, not such a bad idea. It may be that if it becomes an unbalanced state, then it will make for naive decisions. But it's good to be open to that state of being, that it is good to be prepared to be totally open. And it changes to hexagram 58, the joyous, which is an indication of it not being such a bad idea. It suggests that being an open small child is quite a joyous state. And there are critics who would say this is a superficial joy. I think that's a bit cynical. I think it is a useful thing to consider. Is your own particular imbalance one that you are just a bit too heady, too sophisticated, too analytical? Perhaps you need to open up. Perhaps you need to be a bit more like a little child. Having said which, in the third line, by following the grown man, we might lose the small child. By following, we find what we seek, best remain firm. This is suggesting that losing the small child is not necessarily a sign of greater sophistication or greater wisdom. It may be a mistake. Perhaps it's about bonding with those who share your values and being open to change. It changes to hexagram 49, sometimes called revolution. And I think hexagram 49 is actually, it's a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing because it's called provocation. I suggest the shape of it, lake over fire, is actually provocation, the water being brought to the fire. So I think that that change suggests that we need to be aware of the value of naivety, but also aware of the value of common sense. The fourth line is a yang line at the fourth, so it's not correct. And it includes the line, trust the clarity of the Tao and what can go wrong. So it's saying that if you're in doubt as to whether things are working or not, just be aware that if you're following the Tao, they will tend to. And if you're not, they may not. So you might say, well, what is the Tao? Well, we do know. We know in the moment when the right time is to speak. We may be distracted by discomfort or desperation, but we know the right time to act. We know the right time to be still, and so on. We know these things inherently. Trust the clarity of the Tao and what can go wrong. The true leader makes decisions exclusively for the common good. Avoid making them in order to please others, especially splinter groups, because if you end up being run by focus groups, you end up standing for absolutely nothing. And it is to trust in the clarity of the Tao is to trust in the abstract. So not in something, not in yourself, not in an idea, not in a principle. Simple trust, sometimes called faith, if you like. The fourth line would change to ton, hexagram 3, difficulty at the beginning, which is about perhaps being aware that the way things start may be slow, but they can accelerate. And also, it's about the value. It's water over thunder. It's the value of looking after your equipment. It suggests, making sure that before you put your tools away, you make sure they're dry, and so on and so forth. The fifth line, generally reckoned ruler. Above all things, be true to yourself. Trust in high quality, good fortune. The emperor leads by adhering to the highest. This is one of the most powerful lines in the Book of Changes. If you have thrown this line, it suggests that you are either in great power or possessor of great power, or that it is around the corner for you. It changes to Chun, hexagram 51, the arousing, which is a mixed bag, because it suggests everything's happening all at once, but it's followed by Gen, which is absolute stillness. So it may be a panicky kind of a thing it will go to. And again, it's about trusting in quality, trusting the Tao, and things will tend to work out. The sixth line, meeting and connecting, then following connections, is the top line, which is usually about spirituality and the things beyond the mundane. The king makes offerings to the western mountains. It's asking questions about the quality of the leader. Is he someone who is worth following or not? And it's suggesting that both the leader and yourself should be seeking clarity from above. Interestingly, it changes to Wu Huang, number 25, the blessing, and which suggests that this is the highest level. But as Bob Dylan said, don't follow leaders and watch your parking meters. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Or as T.H. Lawrence said, trust the tale, not the teller. What this whole hexagram is about It's about being responsible for what you choose to follow, and indeed what you choose to offer to people who may follow you. So I hope that's been of some kind of use to you. Um, if you want to join the classes from which these are edited highlights, you can join for a year at a time. You need to email Sheila. Her email is somewhere around here. But these hexagrams, this bit, the edited highlights, will be on my YouTube channel, but you'll miss the bit about how this relates to this very moment. And anyone who's looking at this in 2025 will be aware we are talking about a new and rather dangerous world order. And the interpretations of line 6, this is what it may be worth finally drawing attention to. There are 3 interpretations that were offered, I remember learning. I think this is Peter Fibres. The leader is badly motivated and won't change. At the top of the hexagram, there's no higher line to follow, so seize him and once bound, make him follow. The second one, the sage returns his attention to the people. This is the bodhisattva vow. The bodhisattva vow is that when you depart this mortal coil, you have a choice of whether to come back or not. The bodhisattva keeps coming back till everybody is in samsara. Your call. Third, the king is the land and behaves appropriately, acting as intermediary between the worlds. And that the king is the land is a very important thing to bear in mind, I would have thought, in the United Kingdom in 2025. Perhaps give that some thought. Okay, I hope this has been useful, not too obscure. Let us know if you liked it. Make use of it, and sign up or approve, whatever. And I will be talking to you very soon about the next hexagram. I look forward to that. Thank you. Bye-bye.